Now we turn to the race for the White House. Last night, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump went head-to-head for the first and possibly only presidential debate.
For around 90 minutes, the two discussed many issues that are top of mind for voters as they tried to appeal to undecided voters who could determine the outcome of the election, especially those in battleground states like right here in Michigan, where the candidates are nearly deadlocked in polls.
What's up? Good debate.
A handshake kicked off the first meeting between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. But the 90-minute debate soon turned into a sparring match over issues like the economy.
I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy.
I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation.
And immigration.
They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in.
What we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem.
The former president even spreading misinformation about migrants in Ohio.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats.
Both candidates continued to make their case even after the debate. Last night, Vice President Harris greeted supporters at an event here in Philly, while former President Trump said that he won when he spoke with reporters in a spin room.
This was my best debate. I thought it was very good.
This is very much two different visions for our country.
Both campaigns taking a pause today to mark 23 years since the September 11th attacks are back in the swing states tomorrow. Jared Hill, CBS News, Philadelphia.
And though Donald Trump quickly claimed victory after the debate, saying it was one of his best, a majority of registered voters who watched Tuesday's ABC presidential debate believe Kamala Harris outperformed Trump. More than 60%, in fact, said the vice president performed better, according to a new CNN poll out this morning, though those polled said the debate would not impact who they plan to vote for come November.
And joining us now to break down the key points of last night's debate is Oakland University professor David Dulio.
David, first off, give us your thoughts overall on last night's debate. And I think the big question is, was there a clear-cut winner?
Well, I think that we have to think about this in terms of did the voters win, right? I mean, that's really the who we're looking for to come out on top, right? I think to more directly answer your question, I think Vice President Harris and her team are going to be very pleased with how things went, and clearly former President Trump thinks so too. But you look at some of the data that we're seeing early this morning, and it's pretty clear that more Americans think that she won. But that's a really key point that you said there at the end about it's not going to affect their vote, right? That's really what we care about in all of this is does this move the needle at all? And from first glimpse, I guess, of the data this morning, it appears that it's not.
Yeah, that seems to be happening with debates more and more. But let's talk about some of the things that were touched on last night. The economy. It's always on everybody's mind, economy and inflation. Both candidates talked about that from their point of view. Let's take a listen to what they had to say last night about that.
I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children.
We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world, and the tariff will be substantial in some cases.
So both candidates talking about the economy and inflation, how they're going to deal with things. When you heard them talk about that, what were your reactions? Did you think it was, something that could be pulled off when they talk about it, or is these pie in the sky ideas?
I think it's more the same as what we expect from candidates, and it's not really their fault, right? I mean, or at least totally. They've got 2 minutes to answer this question that is incredibly important and is incredibly large in terms of scope and scale, right? So I think that, frankly, more voters wanted to hear more about the economy than they were able to last night. And that's only because it is clearly the #1 issue for the vast majority of Americans, right? And whether it's economy in general, inflation, high prices, et cetera, right? That is the issue that most Americans are focused on. And frankly, we didn't get a lot of economy talk last night.
You mentioned economy and inflation, immigration, obviously also taking center stage last night. Both candidates talking about their plans for border control. But former President Trump made some unfounded claims, specifically about immigrants in Illinois. Let's listen in.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
So after the debate, Trump's running mate J.D. Vance defended those comments. You know, what is going on with this? Like, where do we come up with this?
Well, it's one of those social media things that gets a life of its own, right? And sort of takes off from there. And we see today that boy, it even reaches the highest levels of presidential campaigns where these rumors and innuendo and unfounded claims, at least according to the folks in Springfield, are taking over.
Any surprises at all? Anything that stood out to you most after watching last night?
I think it's surprising. I think that President Trump let Vice President Harris get under his skin from time to time. I think she poked him a little bit on his rallies, and people are leaving early, and you can throw a lot at President Trump when you start talking about the size of his crowds and the rallies. That's where he gets irritated, right? And I think his frustration showed a couple times last night that if he had it back, he wouldn't let that happen.
What about the rules of the debate? How they had mics muted and they had no studio audience? I mean, who does that really favor?
Well, going in, I thought that it would favor Donald Trump because he has a tendency in the past, at least, to talk over his opponent and to interrupt, right? He didn't really do that last night. I think Vice President Harris did that more, not as much noticeable, maybe because those mics were muted, but it still kept happening, right? And it's not like you couldn't hear him trying to sneak another answer in there, and they were both able to do that by asking for more time from the moderators, which I think they got in just about every instance, right? So it's one of those things that it doesn't always play out the way you think it's gonna.
Mm-hmm. Always interesting as well to see what happens on the heels of a debate. Specifically, we've been talking about celebrity endorsements as well
Taylor
today.
Swift, the big one, yeah. Now, is that going to move the meter at all? I mean, celebrities are always endorsing candidates on one side or the other, but I mean, Taylor Swift has a certain kind of following. Does this matter in the election?
Well, I don't think it's not insignificant. I think that, look, you talked about it at the top, right? This is an incredibly close election. It's going to be close. Even small shifts in voter preferences, maybe she picks up a few votes from the younger crowd, and that makes them want to turn out and vote. Boy, you know what? Small shift can still have a big impact on the final outcome.
Project 2025 is something that's kind of like some buzzwords going on. Now, last night, both sides had their comments on that. We have something about Donald Trump saying about this, a clip on this. We'll get your reaction in a second.
I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do.
So it's been branded a conservative plan for America, but there you see Donald Trump kind of distancing himself from it, where the Democrats have denounced it. So where does this whole Project 2025 sit?
Well, this is a fascinating aspect of this campaign, right? Because Project 2025 came out of the Heritage Foundation, a think tank, certainly right-leaning, conservative. But I've heard of no Republicans who have embraced it as a plan for what they would do if they say keep the House of Representatives or get control in the Senate. And clearly, Donald Trump said last night, couldn't be more clear. I have nothing to do with it, right? Yet it's going to keep coming back because it's a boogeyman that the Democrats can use. It's shorthand now, right? Where when some voters hear Project 2025, they automatically think, oh my gosh, that contains some of the worst policy proposals I've ever heard. I don't like it, and to some extent, it doesn't even matter, right? If Trump is tied to it, the Democrats are doing a really good job of using it as a a club and hammering him with it over and over again.
Yeah, obviously hard to make predictions, right? You don't have a crystal ball, but I think there's been a lot of talk, even before last night's debate, as to whether or not we're going to see another debate before the election. What's your best guess on that?
I mean, I hope we do. And I say that only because I think the more times we get to hear from candidates in an unscripted, unfiltered, unproduced way, right, rather than the 30-second ads that are all over the airwaves today, right? The more we get those opportunities, the better. And it's because they have such a short time to talk about all these weighty issues, whether it's economy, immigration, abortion, foreign policy, right? To try to cover all of those in 90 minutes is almost unthinkable, right? And the fact that you know we're putting so much stock into just these 2-minute answers or 1-minute answers, right? You'd want to see another chance for them to hopefully drill down a little bit, get into a little bit more detail on what their plans are. We heard a lot about plans last night, right? But not a lot about details.
Of course, we do have the vice presidential debate coming up next month. Is that something that, I mean, these debates between the presidential candidates barely sway voters. How about the vice presidential candidate debate?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? There's so much talk and discussion about who the vice presidential candidates are going to be and what do they say and what are they going to do, right? But we know that people don't cast their vote based on who's the vice presidential running mate, right? They cast their ballot based on who's at the top of the ticket.
All right, David, thanks a lot for breaking this all down for us
My
this
pleasure.
morning.
Thanks,
Really
David.
appreciate it.